I was the businessman in the family, and you know, my sister is an anthropologist, and you know, she didn't know anything about business. So when after my father died, I took over sort of managing his work. And one other thing we were able to accomplish, there's a baseball movie right now. It's on TV all the time. It's called For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner, based on my father's book. And most people don't realize that. He wrote a baseball novel, and that's 2 books that my father wrote that have been made into film that he didn't live to see. He had no idea of that either. So it's a big legacy, you know, I'm carrying on. I take that very seriously. And with the success of Gettysburg, I mean, it was an enormous success. Turner, he's an excitable guy, and he got excited about making more Civil War movies. And they came to me. My father had already been gone for 5 years, and they came to me and said, wouldn't it be great to take your father's book, to take The Killer Angels, go in both directions, before and after, put stories together that could be adapted for films. And it was always about being a movie. Well, I'd never written anything before. And when I started working on it, I actually had the conversation with the film director that if whatever I come up with is lousy, it goes in the trash and nobody will ever see it. Which is why I had no fear, because people ask me all the time, weren't you afraid to write a book? How did you know how to write a book? I had no idea. But I knew that if whatever I do is not any good, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. That was 20 years ago. And so now I'm a writer, and that's my career. And I had no idea that this would ever happen to me. Frozen Hours deals with the Korean War. And it's a story that I've been talking about and working on for close to a dozen years now, and the veterans, the Korean War vets, generously send me extraordinary amounts of stuff. I mean, just, you know, diaries, memoirs, collections of letters, and you know, they're as old or older as some of the World War II vets. We assume Korean War vets are younger, you know, because Korea is more recent. And yet a lot of the Korean War vets, particularly the Marines, were veterans of World War II. I didn't know that when I started the research on this, and learned that a lot of them, you know, had gone home in 1945 at the end of World War II. They were called back up. So a huge percentage of the Marines in Korea are of the same age as we know now of the World War II vets, and we're losing a lot of them every day. And sadly, there are fewer and fewer of them, and some of the people that have sent me stuff are no longer with us, didn't live to see the book, which makes me very sad. But theirs is a story, the reason to me why this is important, theirs is a story that nobody knows. What about the Chosin Reservoir? You know, what about Incheon and the Yalu River? I mean, these are things you may have heard of, but that's the story. And it's a story that these veterans, they deserve to be remembered. And Americans really should know that when these guys came home, unlike in 1945, there were no parades, and there were no victory marches, and there was no celebration. They just sort of came home and went back to civilian life. And they just weren't remembered. And what they did was extraordinary, and they need to be remembered.